That was my first intentional interaction with the gay community. And I had a pivotal spiritual revelation. I stood there, and with anyone who made eye contact with me, I said, "Could I offer you a hug or a high five?" And the first hug went to a young girl that had said it had been 4 years since she had a hug from her mother because she's a lesbian. And being able to walk in this and still believing that there's something greater than ourselves, and holding true to the truth that God is love and the fruit of the Spirit is love. And that's what I see, honestly, in the work of Free Mom Hugs. I see families having authentic relationships with their kids.
This is part 2 of my conversation with Sara Cunningham, founder of Free Mom Hugs. In part 1, we explored the early years of her journey, the reckoning she faced, and that first powerful moment of stepping toward the gay community with open arms. If you missed that episode, you can start there anytime at lovewoa.com or on your favorite podcast app. In this second half, we move deeper into her awakening, the faith that carried her through uncertainty, and the beginnings of a movement that would go on to embrace people around the world. This is where curiosity becomes action, and where families begin to find each other again. I'm Jeff Click, and this is Love Without Asterisks. Here is part 2 of my conversation with Sara Cunningham. Shall we jump into 2015?
We can.
Because that was a big year for you.
Yes, it was.
And that's kind of an origin point for where you are now. So let's talk about Pride 2015 and what led up to that day.
Yeah, well, I noticed that you have my book on the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's titled How We Sleep at Night, A Mother's Memoir.
If you're listening to us, you can't see this, but this is the book here.
It's a beautiful cover that my son designed. And the book will explain the cover, so I won't take that time now. But that book is self-published, and again, not for sympathy or anything, but I do admit that I do have a 10th grade education, so you realize how limited your vocabulary is.
When you're right.
But I had to write about what I was learning and the people that I was meeting, and this journey that took us from the church to the Pride Parade without losing my faith, without losing my son. And the last chapter in this book was inspired by standing with Parker and his friends at the Oklahoma City Pride Festival on Northwest 39th Street. Mm-hmm. That was my first intentional interaction with the gay community. And I had a pivotal spiritual revelation, many that I write about in the book. And I do write about, there's a chapter in there called What's in My Head. These are all the spiritual things that I were clinging to. And I thought, how can I leave this chapter out? Because it was the only thing getting me through. And some of my own theology, some of my own, why can't I think of the word? Some of my own theology has changed since writing the book. All that to say, the last chapter, standing at the Pride Festival with Parker and his friends, pivotal spiritual moment because I was looking for God's favor there. I needed to see the Lord there. Could I have Googled what pride meant? Yeah. Did I? No.
Plenty of places in the Bible you can find where he says he is there.
No idea about the significance of a little gay bar in New York City called the Stonewall Inn. No idea about gender identity, sexual orientation at this time. Forget the acronym. I knew nothing. I just wanted to see God's favor and direction and hand. Anyway, so in 2014, I stood with Parker at the Pride Festival. From that day, I never looked back. I started volunteering at clothing closets. I volunteered for the Oklahoma City Pride Board, Second Chance Prom, whatever I could do to learn. And I started learning about laws that affect families like ours. For example, this year, Oklahoma had more anti-LGBTQ plus bills than anywhere else in the country. In 2015, in 29 states, your daughter, my son, could be denied housing, health care, even thrown out of public spaces because of how they identify. Today, it's 30. Do you understand? So these are the things I was learning, and I became accountable to those things. And that made me the accidental activist that I am today because I was accountable to those things. Never mind seeing my son happy and healthy and living authentically. So I started hearing stories from members of the community. And the most that I heard is that they had lost their sense of belonging as they had been alienated from their homes, from their church families, and from many parts of society and the laws that affect them. In 2015, I made a homemade button.
That's the one, huh? For those who are listening, it's
your glitter inside this plastic button.
It's a plastic encased button with Free Mom Hugs written in a marker in your handwriting, I presume. And it just says Free Mom Hugs with black ink. That's it. It's that simple.
This is how I didn't know how to order anything online, right? I went to Michael's and bought this and then scribbled that. And there really is glitter in here somewhere. But anyway, this is the Free Mom Hugs button that I made because I thought, well, that's what I heard is that people just miss their mom. And so I went to the Pride Festival and I stood there, and with anyone who made eye contact with me, I said, could I offer you a hug or a high five? And the first hug went to a young girl that had said it had been 4 years since she had a hug from her mother because she's a lesbian. And I heard stories like that all day.
Yeah.
And I went home that night covered from head to toe with glitter. But I also had those horror stories, just kept me awake. And so from that experience, we started. I have another button here somewhere. It's probably hidden.
Oh, did it fall? Yeah, it's right there below you.
My big butt.
That's all right.
Oh my God. And so now we have this.
I recognize that logo.
And I wanted to keep it very plain because I want it to be seen from a distance.
Yeah.
And even if we can't connect and get that hug in, you know that I am a safe, and strong, and faithful ally.
Right.
This is a signal that I'm a strong and faithful ally. And so some moms and dads and friends and allies, we got together and started offering free mom hugs at the Pride festivals. And
so simple, but so impactful.
Kind of like the Bethlehem story, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where Free Mom Hugs enters our story.
Oh yeah. Tell me more.
Because our first experience with Pride was something that,
what year was it?
This would have been 22, perhaps 21.
Right before COVID?
Right after COVID.
Oh.
Coming out of it, I think.
Okay.
Alessandra had there was a pretty big moment we had with Alessandra, and one of the things she asked us was, will you go to Pride with me next summer, the parade? And we were, of course, yes. We had unfortunately had spent some time separated from Alessandra with some mental health challenges, and so during that time we had done a lot of soul searching on where we stood on this. I mentioned trench moments earlier, those deep trenches where we spent some time. And so we made the commitment to go to Pride with her. And when that time rolled around, this was the downtown one. So this wasn't the 39th one.
Yeah.
But so end of June, and you know this, but our audience won't, but end of June in Oklahoma, it's like the heat has definitely set in. The humidity is still present. And it's a pretty hot event to go to.
Brutal.
So, there was that, I think my mind was trying to find all these reasons to not be excited about going, because I was not 100% on board just yet with to the extent I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we're getting ready. It's a day or so away. And Desiree is telling me, oh, I'm wearing this shirt that I got from an organization that's actually out of Oklahoma City called Free Mom Hugs. And so she told me the story. I'm like, cool. And she's like, so that means that you can wear the shirt that I had bought myself. I'm like, wait a second. You're making me wear a shirt? And it wasn't a Free Mom Hug shirt, but it was definitely a very pride-centric shirt. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready for this, And that's not a color I wear. I'm not sure it's gonna. I was thinking about wearing this, and like here I am, the straight dad, worried about my fashion choices going to Pride,
It
right? So
matters.
it kind of maybe that gives a little insight as to where the gay gene apparently came from in our family. I don't know, but I laugh about that to this day. I was fretting this to the level of I was, but we get there despite the heat, despite the sweat, just being so sweaty and just being the brutal day it was such a cool experience because I will never forget my wife standing at the curb as the parade goes by with her Free Mom Hug shirt on. And she sees her first person walking towards her. And this is before they put the barriers up. She walks right out into the middle of that parade, arms wide open, and hugs this woman.
Oh my gosh.
And it leveled me because there was something so genuine and authentic about the hug, about the moment, about the environment, and about the power of just a simple act like that. And fortunately, I got a photo of it. And for those viewing, I'll put it up on the video here. But I'll never forget that moment. And it happened because of you. It happened because of you and you taking initiative and doing something that mattered, that was simple yet big at the same time, and that resonated with so many people that to this day, you've grown this into a full-fledged organization, present in all 50 states, even internationally. How does that make you feel? I mean, talk about since then. What has this done in your heart and in your mind?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
You just took me right there. And in the life of Free Mom Hugs, we call that the spark. That first hug. It's an interaction. It's that essence of humanity. It's where love intertwines, and it's a beautiful thing. And we call that the spark. And Free Mom
That's
Hugs.
a perfect word because
It
I've
goes
always
both ways.
Desiree my spark. She's the spark
that's
to my steady
perfect then.
flame. So it fits perfectly.
It's official then.
Yeah.
And it really does grow a wildfire. But you know, Free Mom Hugs in 2015, a lot's happened in a very short amount of time. Talking about the nonprofit aspect of it, I had no idea of becoming a nonprofit. None. We were just out there, me and other allies.
So this hadn't even you hadn't thought of the next steps with this. You didn't intend to take it any further, right?
Or anything. Yeah. We were just in Oklahoma, showing up at Pride festivals and checking second chance proms, and we would hear from individuals who were living out of their car or couch surfing or just at-risk behavior. So we would take up collections and pay the phone bill or offer safe housing, or just like we would in church. If someone had a need, I couldn't fill it, we'd get some people together and we'd help. And that's what we did. And so shortly thereafter, I went to what I thought was a support group for families like ours. It turned out to be for the adult transgender community. And I had never been in the same room with a transgender person that I know of until that day. And I stayed because I was curious and I listened to their stories. And I cried in my car after that meeting because I thought these are beautiful, misunderstood people, and how different their lives could be if they had just supportive people in their life, or a way to make a living, or to get health care that they need. And from that day on, I was determined to do whatever I could. And then I started meeting transgender people everywhere. It's like once you are aware of the community, you just started seeing, and it's a very small community. So all that to say, and I wanted to create a transgender Valentine's banquet. It was around Valentine's Day that I met that group. And I wanted to create a transgender Valentine's banquet that would be free to the community and those that love and support them, their families. And I wanted to make some good memories. I wanted to have resources there, a photographer, a nice dinner, free to the community. And so we're nickel and diming it, right? But a friend said that they wanted to donate $500, but they could only donate to a nonprofit. Well, we weren't a nonprofit, but at the time there was an Expressions Church on 39th Street to a partner, a same-sex partner, um, two gay men. I don't know why I'm stuttering there. Officiated the church. Right. Anyway, they offered to allow us to umbrella under their nonprofit. And that person that said they'd send the $500 never sent it. They've helped in other ways since then, but they never sent that money.
But it led you to at least the concept of becoming a nonprofit.
We still had the banquet. Yeah. And then a few years later, I had a couple of social media posts and a podcast go viral. And that's when we became our own nonprofit.
That was when you offered to do stand in as the mom for a wedding?
Well, actually, Jan Hatmaker had me on our podcast, and then she shortly thereafter went to offer hugs, and she named Free Mom Hugs and mentioned my name, and that went viral. And then I started officiating weddings, and I mean, there's a little story there too, if you don't mind. I don't want to go on, but
that's what we're here for.
Rex, my husband and I were on vacation. We met an elderly couple. And we made friends and we just stayed connected through social media. And then all of this started happening. And then the Marriage Equality Act passed. And they reached out to me and said, Sarah, would you officiate our wedding? And I had to search that up too. Like, what do I believe about same-sex marriage? But I consider it just as sacred and holy as my own. Mm-hmm. And so they had been together 28 years. And when the Marriage Equality Act passed, I thought, we need to do this. They have property and,
Sure.
So, but I officiated the very first wedding, same-sex wedding in Natchez, Mississippi, made front page of the paper there. And the reporter interviewed one of the women and said, why after 28 years would you do this now? And Denise, she's the sassier of the two. But she says, well, I had to make an honest woman out of her. That started my advocacy as far as officiating weddings, same-sex weddings, and hearing about how parents were refusing to come to the wedding, not acknowledging the relationship. And so I made the stand-in post. Then that went viral, and it's been on fire.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. Let's go back to something you said. No, that was great exploration of those stories, because that's what we're here for. You used a word that I've been using in my writing a lot. And when you stayed for, I believe it was the support group that unknowingly you went to, and it was more of a transgender support group. Mm-hmm. But you stayed because you were what?
Curious.
Yeah. That word curious. That's a word I've leaned on a lot, because I find that exploring curiosity is just a simple shift in getting to the next level of understanding.
Yes.
And I understand that the average person out there who doesn't face this, whether it's being a parent or having a sibling or a friend, that, that is the relationship is meaningful enough to cause them to not only be curious, but to step into that curiosity and to seek a better understanding. That's what I'm hoping to accomplish through this podcast, right? It wasn't available to me 7 years ago when I searched for it. And coming full circle into the last year and a half, as I've become more comfortable being vocal about the circumstances in our family and about my daughter, and normalizing it. I mean, that's such a taboo word, I think, in the religious community, normalization. But when you see it from this side, it's like, well, we need to be doing more of this. But I began hearing from dads in particular, hey, you said something in our conversation the other day that gave me a peek into your life. And it's reminding me a lot of a conversation I had with my daughter last week. I using terminology I don't understand. Can we go grab coffee so you can kind of tell me more about this? And so through more of those conversations, they started just coming out of nowhere. I was like, I need to do something with this. And I kept explaining in these conversations, yeah, man, I remember where you were at. The first thing I did was search for a podcast. I mean, it's the number of times I've told that story. It's like, hello, it's like, I didn't want to start a support group. I was past the idea of starting a church group. And, you know, I try to be more efficient doing one-off things. I'm perfectly willing to do that, but it was like, how can I do this in a way that's efficient that I can just offer something more than a conversation? And I remembered 7 years ago, I searched for a podcast and it wasn't
I
there.
love that.
And so, it brought me back to this. It's so out of character for me to take this step on this topic. The tech stuff, I have fun with this. It's part of what I've done all along but using it for this reason, is not something I saw coming. But it's something I'm stepping into, and I credit a lot of that to my willingness to not only be curious, but to act on that curiosity and take next steps and seeking understanding of something that might intimidate me or that might trigger my old purity culture based fear, or that might seem to go up against a piece of scripture that I've been afraid to make eye contact with, since circumstances in my life have changed. And it's made all the difference in the world, acting on the curiosity. So that's something I want to really encourage within my audience is, if you find yourself stuck, if you find this giant elephant in the room getting in your way, curiosity is a great place to start chipping away at that. So
that's true. That's a good analogy. Curiosity is a good thing.
So how I asked you earlier, and I know it's hard to define, but how has love changed in your world before, back to, say, Parker coming out?
Yeah.
And what love looked like at that point versus what love looks like now in your life?
Now I understand the question. Love, I can only define it this way, is that in the depths of my awakening, when for the first time in my life, the uncertainty of our salvation, the security of everything that I knew was just vanishing. It was like smoke. It's like going away, and the uncertainty of coming out of that closet.
As the parent.
Yes.
Yes.
And as a woman of faith as well, is that I experience love so much more than I thought was ever possible. I experience what I believe is the power of the Holy Spirit, the fellowship of believers, the essence of humanity, so much more that I have never looked back. And I have never doubted, because I know that love, it sounds so cliche to say it, but love truly is the answer. And if we are shaming anyone, even ourselves, that is the sin. And love, once you are able to cross the threshold of the unknown, of the uncertainty, and trust in the love, even though it's hard to see at the time, blind faith just popped in my head. Like, it's walking in on this faith, like, God, I remember a prayer early on. We were at Falls Creek, you know that place, right?
I've been there many times, yeah.
We had a lot of good times there. But this was when Parker was probably 17. We were at Falls Creek, and, we'd been in the city this whole time, and we get to that prayer garden with a few of the youth, the older youth. We wouldn't sneak out, but we would take them up there.
I snuck out.
Yeah.
Once.
And we were up there, and you're from the city. You look at the sky and you forget how magnificent the sky is. I was just taken back. I said, God, I forgot about all this. Like, my God, so beautiful. And at that time I was so conflicted, and I was just spending years trying to figure this out, because I got to figure it out. And at that moment I said, God, why can't I just be like a ball of gas? Why can't I just be up there? You just place me where you want me, and all I have to do is like
Shine.
shine, but not in a glamorous, not in a beautiful. Like I just didn't want to have to figure anything out. I didn't want to be responsible for anything. I just wanted to lay there and let out gas and shine. And it was such a moment. And then I went back to the dorms, to the cabin with the girls. And it's weird to say this, but there was an exit sign on the dorm. And it flashed just a light reflection on the wall that looked like an angel. It really, I mean, like the outline of like a Christmas angel. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all that to say, so I wrote this song. I'm not going to sing it, but I'll say it if it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's called Wide-Eyed at a Starry Sky. And it's wide-eyed at a starry sky. Stars shine golden falling down. And I say to myself, oh, to be a star. Oh, to be a star shining. Oh, to be a star shining in your eyes. Wide-eyed at a starry sky. Starshine brings angels to my mind. And I say to myself, oh, to be an angel. Oh, to be an angel singing. Oh, to be an angel singing hallelujah. Wide-eyed at a starry sky. Starshine brings love into my life. And I say to myself, oh, to be so beautiful, to be so lovely, just like you are. Mm. And that was the point of an awakening. And it's just love. Love wins. Yeah. It really does.
Well, that's a great way to bring real meaning to that term, love wins, because we see it on t-shirts and bumper stickers and pens. And a lot of people around here especially roll their eyes at it. I know. Not understanding what
I do sometimes too. It's like, what does that even look like?
It's a wonderful song.
Thank you.
And
Parker sings it, by the way, and it's beautiful.
Is he a musician?
Yes. Yeah. He's an artist and he's a folk singer and he's just beautiful.
That's awesome. Is there a recording of that song out there?
I do.
I'll have to link it.
It's on a CD, so
okay. Well, we'll link it in the information about this episode. So, you said something that reminded me. You used the term awakening. As the retired home builder, I use construction language in a lot of my writing and as you'll see throughout these episodes, I call it a renovation. And I talk about, we're handed these blueprints, the blueprint of how we do life. It comes from our parents. Our parents were handed blueprints by their parents. So we have this intrinsic influence that we're born with. It may not always stick and we may not always adhere to it. But, if you're following the Christian formula, you do in a lot of ways, right? And then it's added to by perhaps your church and the voices that you allow into your life. Maybe it's a political figure. Maybe it's a talk radio host. Maybe it's a particular news channel. But they shape this blueprint that we live in. And, if you know anything about construction, especially about renovation, when you get into renovating a space, you got to be careful where you're affecting walls. You can't just yank a wall out of a structure without knowing what's above it and what purpose that wall's serving. Because if you pull out the wrong wall, you damage the wrong wall, things can implode on you really fast. And
is that what they call a load-bearing wall?
Load-bearing wall. It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I learned that on HGTV.
And I think that for me, and perhaps a lot of people in this situation, the load-bearing wall is where we kind of get stuck. Because maybe we have our LGBTQ loved one in sight, whether it's our child, a friend, whatever, or someone. And we're willing to go to a certain point with them. But once we get to that load-bearing wall, whether it's 6 certain verses or grandpa's perspective that got handed down to dad, and dad's amplified it, and it's handed down to us.
Mm-hmm.
Those load-bearing walls are often the obstacle that holds us back from what you're describing, which I've experienced as well. An entirely different kind of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a freeing love.
Yes.
It's a love that I didn't know existed. There's a tremendous amount of beauty in it that is hard to see until you're there.
Exactly.
And that's what I hope episodes like this can serve, is a way that we can find how to modify those load-bearing walls. Not fully removing them necessarily, but there's ways that you can still keep that support there and modify the wall and find space around it, make an opening, reach it, connect with your someone
Mm-hmm.
despite that load-bearing wall. And I've said before, this is not a Christian podcast, but clearly my background, your background, much of the audience's background is probably coming from that perspective. And I'm encouraged to hear you speak of a faith that still exists in your heart and in your mind. Can you talk about that? What does that look like? Because I think I'm still wrestling with the visual of loved one, God, and I'm somewhere in here between, and I have to choose which direction I go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really that way, is it?
No, not at all. No.
Elaborate on that if you can. What does faith look like to you now versus what it looked like back then? And faith being your religious beliefs, your relationship with Christ, with, your views of God.
I think I could explain it like there was a time that I had a wooden cross hanging from my rearview mirror. And this is when, again, Parker was coming out, and it was a gay straight debate before the Marriage Equality Act passed. It was just constant, and I just felt like it was just a barrage of attacks on my son, And so I took that cross down from my rearview mirror because I felt guilty by association, because at that time, and even quite honestly today, the Christian is just getting a bad rap. And so now, honestly, I identify as a woman of faith. I believe in God. I do believe the Gospels. I believe Scripture, and again, as I mentioned earlier, the power of the Holy Spirit and the fellowship of believers. That hasn't changed. Now, some of my theology, as far as heaven and hell, or
what gets you there,
things like that. Yeah, that's another podcast. But I think that faith is, I learned it as believing in something that you can't see, and being able to walk in this and still believing that there's something greater than ourselves, and holding true to the truth that God is love and the fruit of the Spirit is love. And that's what I see, honestly, in the work of Free Mom Hugs. I see families having authentic relationships with their kids. I see members of the community empowered. I see life-giving, empowering, just relationships. And that's love. Love is life-giving. And it's in the form of a podcast or a hug, or someone telling their story.
Yeah.
It's really very simple. We make it a lot harder than it has to be. And all of those things, if you're a parent or, someone who might be on the fence, it's like, and if you're straight, it's like, did you ever have to question it if and when you were straight?
Right.
You always knew it. It was always in you. And the second part of your question is, I forgot the second part of your question.
Well, we were talking about just how you've kept faith intact. No, that's okay. How you've kept.
It was always there. I think my faith it never left.
This didn't wreck your faith?
It never, no. Now, there was a time when I had trouble going through my devotionals or listening to praise and worship music or listening to a sermon or the, KJ or K Love, all those things. Yeah. But now I'm gradually getting back into them because can put it in perspective and in the right theology.
Yeah. I like that you say that, because where I am, and I think you're further ahead of me in this process, I've likened it when we wrestled with Alessandra coming out. We were also going through a number of other major situations in our circumstances that were kind of like a perfect storm of questioning faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way I've described it is that I decided one day to wipe the table clean. And I figured that anything important enough will find its way back to that table.
I love that.
Because what was happening for me in you mentioned Christianity in general and the rap it's getting, and its entanglement with certain political perspectives. And while I, in my previous version of myself, embodied many of those beliefs and many of those positions, what I found was that suddenly everything started to taste the same. It's like a freezer burn meal that's been in the freezer, too long. It's like, I can't distinguish this from this, and how I got this perspective, and why are we using this to justify that? And I could come up with examples, but I'm not trying to create a polarization effect with this podcast by any stretch of the imagination. But I do believe it's important to have an honest conversation about, where our beliefs have changed. But I'm encouraged by the fact that you're bringing things back in, as you mentioned, because I think that there's going to be a time where that's true of me. It's already starting, in fact, because a lot of the research and a lot of the resources that I've gone through in formulating some of my writings for this project has led me to new conclusions and to new views of Scripture and how those can really play into this. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that you've gone through what you call the awakening, what I call the renovation, but there's still substance that lands in the category of faith and a walk with God. Mm-hmm. For me, I think where that's looked is I've when it comes to Scripture, I've tried to tune out interpretations. Mm-hmm. And focus specifically on what's red in the Bible, the color red.
Yes, the red letter. Yeah.
And that's where I've started. That's where I'm at right now. And I'm finding that to be, those red letters are what I call signal in the noise. It's a metaphor I use in the writing, a signal to noise ratio. If we can just tune in, it's like the old-fashioned dial in the car, right? The analog radio. If you're too far to the left or too far to the right, you miss the clear signal. You start to introduce static. And so I've tried to really create a keen sense of what's noise, what's static, versus what is truth and what is pure and what is what should be allowed into my heart and into my mind. So
it is a process.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight, just like our children had to go through. I say no one has searched God, the Scriptures, or themselves more than the gay Christian or their mother or their parent.
Yeah.
But it is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I love your analogy of a renovation. But it's a series of deconstructing, reconstructing.
The important part is the reconstructing, because I think a lot of there are those who, when they hear the word deconstruction, they're like, not going there, right? Maybe they've known somebody who's used that term and they don't want to relate with that person, or you're right. And so reconstruction is the important part of that. And so, yeah, you're right. The renovation kind of metaphor, I feel like addresses that. And even though I'm still in the middle of that, it's a work in progress, and so it's a journey. Let's talk about Free Mom Hugs today. Okay. Anything else you have going that I might want to know about, that our audience might want to know about, in this, whether it's a project you're working on or something you're focused on right now? What's going on in your world?
Well, we're expanding, and I will say, since November, we've had an uptick of people registering to volunteer, and our merchandise is selling. shows no signs of stopping, which tells me that people are wanting to do something in the climate that we find ourselves in, especially with our transgender friends and family.
So, to the average person in our audience out there who's not looking to start a podcast or a chair,
A movement.
a nonprofit, what is something they can do as it relates to free mom hugs?
You can go to freemomhugs.org. You can find your state chapter. You can find our merchandise, which helps support the nonprofit. But when you find your state chapter, I just would encourage you to get plugged in, and that will keep you in the loop of everything happening in your area. And I promise you, precious person, precious people, if you go to an event, whether it be a pride event or a meet and greet or clothing closet, second chance prom, whatever it is, take the time to show up and meet the local LGBTQ plus community in your area. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed, and your heart will grow 10 sizes. And you can thank me later.
I want to thank you, because that's exactly what happened to me. You know, as I told you earlier, just seeing Desiree be a part of that. What about dads? How can they be involved?
We like to think of mom as an action verb.
Okay.
We have free dad hugs shirts. We have free uncle hugs, grandma hugs. But all are welcome we do require that you be fully affirming. We're not going to have someone come into a pride festival and try to pray the gay away. So let's just clear that up.
Sure.
Fully affirming means that you honor the spiritual gifts of the LGBTQ plus community, and you honor same-sex marriage, period. And that's if you're in a place of worship. And I would just strongly say that if everyone looks like you and talks like you might want to reevaluate that congregation. The way to know between affirming and non-affirming is affirming that place of worship will honor same-sex marriage and allow for the spiritual gifts of the gay community.
This is where I want to reintroduce the idea of curiosity.
Okay.
And seeking next level understanding. And I don't mean next level like, I just mean take the next step to understand better.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of complexity in the conclusions people draw about the LGBT community when they're not familiar with it. And you get all of these other unfair things attached to this, or brought with the stigma of
I get that.
of who these people are, or as you find out, who they're not.
Right. I thought they'd be swinging from the chandeliers, and they're not.
Yeah. The moment my old self would have, wait a second.
I probably would have too.
That's when I want to start. That's how I've identified moments where I need to pause, and I need to make myself open to learning more about this, rather than recoiling and keeping with the old talking points. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And so that was not a rejection of that statement. It was more of to those audience members who might have just tuned out for a minute.
I felt myself building up too.
Okay.
I felt it within me too. So you're not wrong there.
Okay.
But it's like, to be clear, it's Free Mom Hugs is not a faith-based organization either.
And where's this podcast? Yes.
Yeah. But we will always talk about the faith aspect and bad theology, because it really is how we got into this mess.
Yeah. So I'll give you the last word. Tell me, to a parent out there, to someone struggling, whether it's their child or just anyone that they have a relationship with, what would be your parting words to them? Your greatest piece of advice?
Yeah. When your children show you who they are, believe them, and find a way to celebrate them, or you'll suffer without them.
I 100% can support that, and through experience say that is good advice. Delaying action, delaying doing the work, delaying stepping into the discomfort is harm. And often you don't see the ramifications of it until it's too late.
Yeah.
or you're in the midst of a situation you never saw coming.
Yeah.
And that's part of this that I think many people don't understand because they've never had to go there. But my hope is that through efforts like this podcast, through Free Mom Hugs, we can help as many people as possible, parents and LGBTQ kids, avoid those scenarios that you and I found ourselves in, that we've learned, we've paid the price for and learned dear lessons for having done so.
Yeah, there's a mom out there like me then, a dad like you then, who needs to hear from a dad, parents like us. There's parents out there like us then who needs to hear from parents like us now.
Yes. I want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you've
I
done.
want to say you're welcome.
Thank you for what you've done for my wife and me, what you've done for the community. It's, as you said earlier, it's unfortunate that something like this has to exist, but I'm so thankful that it does. We're big fans. I told you, my wife's waiting to come in to meet you after this shooting. So we're just really grateful for Free Mom Hugs, for Sara Cunningham, and for all the people who have helped you build this into what it is. What I love about Sara's story is how it shows the movement from reckoning to redemption. She didn't stay in the fear or the confusion. She let love lead her forward. And that choice has rippled into a global embrace that continues to change lives one hug at a time. If you want to learn more or get involved, visit freemomhugs.org. You can find your state chapter and follow them on their socials. And don't miss Sara's book, How We Sleep at Night. It's a powerful companion to everything we talked about today. If this episode landed with you, take a moment to let me know you're out there with a like, comment, subscribe, or review. And if you want a guided way to keep growing between episodes, check out Metamorphosis at lovewoa.com. It's an email series I've created to help you move toward unconditional love for your LGBTQ plus someone. I'm already excited to bring you the next episode. It's one of the most full circle moments of my story in these foundational episodes of Love Without Asterisks. Until then, I'm Jeff Click, reminding you that the greatest of these is love.